Hi Boys and Girls Club, I'm Mr. Josh, and today I'd like to talk to you about the Dakota Access Pipeline protest and direct action campaign which began in early 2016. Now, the Dakota Access Pipeline protest campaign was a response to Energy Transfer Partners' $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline, which would have brought oil from Canada through the United States. It was a 1,700-mile long oil pipeline. DAPL cut through unceded territory of the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty and cut through Indian reservation land. DAPL crossed the Missouri River near the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation and threatened the water supply of the Standing Rock Sioux. In response, Standing Rock Sioux began a direct action campaign to stop building of the Dakota Access Pipeline. For the Sioux, the Missouri River, or also known in Sioux, the Minnesota, means roiling water and is an important part of life for them because water, rivers, streams are animate objects. They are living creatures that interact in the physical world. The DAPL construction was meant to cross through 4 different states: North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Illinois. While the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation was the largest of the protest campaigns, DAPL met resistance in all the states of proposed construction. Coalitions of native peoples, farmers, ranchers, and environmentalists all opposed the construction of the pipeline because it threatened homes, communities, as well as the environment. The settler colony of the America continent has long separated the 7 nations of the Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota-speaking peoples in the United States. This ongoing repression and separation of the Sioux peoples and nation has been long-standing in U.S. history. And in many respects, Standing Rock was actually a reunification of the 7 nations of the Sioux community. Standing Rock protest at its height was between 10,000 and 15,000 people and was at the time North Dakota's 10th largest city. You may have heard from the DAPL protest the slogan, "Water is life," as a rallying cry for the protest campaign. For the Sioux people, rivers, lakes, streams are not objects, not inanimate, but they are animate creatures of the physical realm. They are active agents in life, being alive themselves and giving life. For the Sioux people and many indigenous peoples in the Americas, there's a long-standing relationship with the physical world around them and the entities that populate the physical world, like the Missouri River. These ideas and stories are embedded in a cultural knowledge and a cultural history and a long tradition for these indigenous people. Too often, though, these ideas and this knowledge has been dismissed as primitive and not knowledge based on scientific evidence according to Western traditions of scientific knowledge development. However, today, anthropologists and sociologists are slowly starting to uncover and demonstrate that this was unique knowledge transferred from one generation to the next. The Standing Rock protest faced lots of resistance from Energy Transfer Partners, the corporation building the pipeline, as well as local and federal officials. Tiger Swan was a private security contractor hired by Energy Transfer Partners to provide security along the Dakota Access Pipeline construction. Along with local law enforcement officials, Tiger Swan created a counterintelligence program to discredit the protesters of the Standing Rock Nation. These stories painted the protesters as religious fanatics and jihadist insurgents, employing the language and rhetoric of the War on Terror to discredit and delegitimize the protest campaign. These counterintelligence programs used against the Standing Rock protest campaign were also widely used during the Civil Rights Movement. The FBI used counterintelligence programs to discredit and delegitimize activists from Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Huey Newton of the Black Panther Party. I invite you to do some more research on these topics and explore them in more depth. In addition to local law enforcement and private security, North Dakota Governor Jack Dalrymple also deployed the National Guard against the Standing Rock community. He also issued an Emergency Management Assistance Compact, or an EMAC, which are usually used and employed during natural disasters. Water protectors were subjected to a wide range of violence, being beaten and seriously injured on many occasions. Now, it's your turn to take on the DAPL protest campaign with a role play that puts you in the role of one of the actors involved in DAPL. Role plays put you in the role of real-world actors and ask you to become a teacher as well. DAPL is a complex issue with lots of perspectives and ideas from different groups and people. DAPL also raises important issues around community rights versus individual rights, and around issues of democracy and self-determination. There are also discussions embedded around social and political power in the U.S. and the status of indigenous rights. We are now asking you to take on these issues in a direct way by representing one of the stakeholders involved in the DAPL protest. The setting for our roleplay will be a fictionalized meeting between the different stakeholders of the DAPL protest and the President of the United States. Your goal and your job at this point is to convince the President of the United States that your perspective and your goals of the organization that you represent should guide policy on the Dakota Access Pipeline. Two of the groups involved in the roleplay are in direct conflict with one another: the Standing Rock Sioux Nation and Energy Transfer Partners. The other three groups involved in our roleplay will add additional context on the pipeline and ask whether or not the pipeline should be built. One of these roles is Iowa farmers who have brought lawsuits and protested other sections of the pipeline. One is Our Children's Trust, which is a youth activist organization organizing to sue the federal government over its insufficient response to climate change. And North America's Building Trades Union, which represents the workers who consider themselves the direct beneficiaries of construction of the DAPL pipeline. As members of this discussion, your goal is really twofold here. First, you'll need to outline your perspective and ideas to other members of the community so that everyone can understand your perspective and your desires. And second, your job is to convince others that your perspective should guide policy on DAPL. When you get your roleplay card from your Boys and Girls Club staff member, please make sure that you read over it carefully prior to the roleplay Zoom activity. And think about the following questions for your roleplay and perspective. First, do you support the building of the Dakota Access Pipeline? Why or why not? Second question, what are the three most compelling arguments or pieces of information that you want the President of the United States to consider when making a decision on the pipeline? And finally, consider how should the President of the United States respond to the Standing Rock Sioux protests blocking the pipeline? Remember, during this Zoom roleplay activity, stay in character during the activity. Use first-person language and perspectives when presenting your perspective. And remember, this roleplay activity is being conducted via Zoom. So please reach out to your Boys and Girls Club staff with any questions and to get your role assigned. In addition to the Zoom activity and roleplay, you'll also find associated 3 news articles and 4 videos on the Dakota Access Pipeline. I invite you to learn more by reading those articles and watching those videos. And I hope to see you all in our Zoom roleplay activity. Thank you.